So, hello and good morning, you guys. I will try to behave according to brand guidelines.
Well, it's lovely to be here. Nice to meet you all. I'm known as the Chief Joy Officer over here in America, or the Joy Kindler. And for me, I'm a believer because gratitude doesn't travel alone. It always comes with joy and abundance. And the more you practice gratefulness, the more abundant your life is and the more joy you have. And for me, in the darkest moments, in the trauma, in everything I've experienced in my life, losing loved ones, jobs, just stress, when you sit in a seat of gratitude and you start your day with just a breath of gratefulness that you're alive, that you know you're here to serve, that all of a sudden you have more abundance in your life, you give it away and it comes back. That's why I'm a believer.
I always think about, if you remember Pretty Woman, the scene where Julia Roberts gets Richard Gere to take off his shoes and socks, and he should walk on the grass and feel the earth. Like it's just like, why not do that? Just ground yourself and just make a moment of some small things.
Personally, I grew up poor and I didn't know it because I was very enriched by parents who had nothing, but we were always raised to believe that we had enough to give. So we didn't have enough food for the week, but if there was a food drive, my mom always gave my sisters and I a can of vegetables to take to the food drive. So I was raised in a household where we were shown gratitude by my parents who didn't actually know that that's what they were doing because they're not educated. So they couldn't actually put words to it, but it was about loving, and it was about giving more than you have. And it was about helping people that are less fortunate. So I've always had a bend in my personality to look out for those that didn't have enough. And then myself personally, I raised our daughter the same way. So you might not think you have enough, but enough comes from abundance. And when you have an abundant mentality, you always have a piece of bread. You always have something that you can give someone, even if it's a paperclip.
Yeah.
So I'm always on the lookout for how can I give? Because when you give, it's returned back to you in ways that sometimes you can't verbalize. But I live constantly in a state of gratefulness. I'm a noticer. So I notice everything. I like, I'm talking to you guys right now, but there's chimes in my front yard that the wind is rustling right now and I can hear them. So it's being aware of your senses and letting gratefulness come to you through taste, a really good piece of food, a glass of wine, your first sip of coffee, the smell of coffee beans, your sounds, things you hear, even listening to other people's words, like being here. This is a gratitude immersion. So being here, it makes us aware that there's so much more to life than taking.
Mm.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, because okay, I know I put you on the spot, but and yes, we can choose. Just don't watch the news. But every time we are together with the people from America, it just sounds like people are just so in it. Like they express gratitude in a different way. Like they are
Yeah.
much more aware of the things, or maybe they speak like when you are speaking. It's so like you just take it to heart.
With gratitude, it's about maybe the framework. I made a really big shift in how I was curious of my questioning. So when I used to talk to friends and colleagues and other things, I'd say, how was your day? How is your day going? And they go, and naturally it was like, and then this and this, and then negative, 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 negative. It's like, so I changed it up, and I was like, first thing, and people looked at me like I had three heads. I was like, hi, morning. What's been the best part of your week so far?
Yeah.
Totally, the mind shift changes. What's the best part? There's always good happening, always good happening. Even if you've got, there will always be some good. I'm not going to say silver lining, but there is always some good or something to be grateful for.
I
Always.
say something really quickly, because there's a word come up in the conversation that I know, because I've come out of depression myself about 12 years ago. I've not suffered with it since. And I know this is a real killer word. And it doesn't matter which leading psychiatrist book you read, you will find this word in there. And the word is should. And it's a really dangerous word. Okay, so if we tell each other what we should do, to your finger pointing thing, or what I should do more of this, I should be more grateful, we actually kick ourselves off, right? We really take ourselves down because we're saying what we should do and we're not living up to the expectation. So we really need to get, and this is not my advice, read Feeling Great by Professor David Burns, read Steve Peters, author of Chimp Paradox, read wherever you go, read Viktor Frankl. They all say, get off this word should and replace the front two letters with the letter C and give yourself the option. You could do this, you could do that, you could do the other.
Great stuff, Paul, and thank you for this. This is, I applaud you. Because it's always, it's the same thing as David was saying, the small things. One thing is that every day after a good night's sleep, you open your eyes and then you can say, oh, I had a good night's sleep. Or yet another day. Moving on, Wendy, you're not in San Francisco, are you?
No. LinkedIn has a limited number of backgrounds. I have to update it with my own hometown. I'm from Halifax, Nova Scotia, from Eastern Canada. Yeah, I just typed in, you get more of what you focus on. You know, it just reminds me, my son has autism and ADHD, and he has trouble with emotional regulation. And when he was little, it was often the case where we'd have a great day and then something would happen at like the last 5 minutes of the day, you know, and he would be like, it was the worst day ever. And so I was like, look, we had a funny 5 minutes. It is not reflective of the whole day, because we are wired as human beings to focus on the negative, unfortunately. So yeah, and I actually started doing a gratitude journal with him when he was little, and I also did a manifesting journal with him. I called it his magic book, and because he was always so focused on his worries, so I was trying to get him to focus on what was possible. And yeah, it's such a difference in his life, actually, because kids with those types of challenges tend to suffer from depression and negative thoughts. And yeah, it really sort of transformed a lot of things for him.
I think it's also how you communicate. Instead of like no shoulds, right, and coulds, you can start your day by saying, I get to go out today and serve another day. I get to do my job because it provides me an income. So many people grumble because they come from a scarcity mentality. They're not coming from, I get to have this job. That happiness doesn't last. Happiness is in the moment. It's circumstantial, but your joy is eternal. You can reach for joy all the time. And when you're grateful, your joymometer goes up. You have more joy.
Because the last thing I want to show is the personal benefits of practicing gratitude. Like it can have enormous effect on you. So just take a moment and just, like, if the physical thing is that it gives you a stronger immune system, fewer perceived aches and pains, lower blood pressure, longer and more restful sleep, willingness to exercise more, the psychological higher levels of positive emotion, like we have been discussing, that there is something like you get a high of from this stuff, and feeling more alert and alive, experiencing more joy and pleasure, feeling more optimistic and happy. And the social aspect, feeling less lonely and isolated, more willing to forgive. That's a thing that we all could use a little bit. More outgoing behavior, more helpful, generous, compassionate behavior. So it is something to think about, because we all, there are so many things that we don't realize what could happen inside you. And I think this slide will just, we will stop here, and I want to say how grateful I am for getting the opportunity of being with you.
Thank you, Hedda. That was fabulous. Really fantastic session. Thank you for joining us and facilitating that conversation, because I really appreciate everybody participating, all their insights and that. Fabulous. Really enjoyed that. Lots of food for thought. And the word of the session for me is joymometer. Absolutely love that, Vicky.